Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Bolling, along with Eboni K. Williams and Kat Timpf. We are the Fox News specialists. Well, if you dare to listen to the left and the global elite, you might think today is doomsday just because President Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Listen.
It's official, people. Donald Trump has pulled the United States out of the biggest climate agreement the world has ever seen. And we all joke about him destroying the world, but this could be it.
So he is not helping the forgotten American. He is hurting them. Their kids will have worse asthma in the summer. They will have a harder time having economic growth. He's made us an environmental pariah in the world.
What happened yesterday on the climate issue is an embarrassment to a country. It should be an embarrassment to him personally for how he answers to his grandchildren.
I think that it really will, if it proves to be what we think it is, this will be the day that the United States resigned as the leader of the free world.
Pretty soon, these guys are going to run out of material to blow everything out of proportion with. Amid the left blaring every false alarm they can, the administration is sticking to its guns amid this uproar.
What the American people deserve, is a debate, objective, transparent discussion about this issue. And what Paris represents is a international agreement to put this country at a disadvantage with very little benefit environmentally across the globe.
Director Pruitt perfectly summarizing what was wrong with the deal. So how is it such a big surprise that so many people that President Trump has put America first? Let's bring it into Kat, Eboni, and myself. Eboni, John Kerry struck me as amazing. What did he say? He said kids are now going to have more asthma now because we pulled out of this Paris Accord. John Kerry has done two things in the last 10 years. One was put together the Paris Accord that puts America behind everyone else. And number two was the Iran deal that turns over billions of dollars to terrorists, to Iran, who are afraid to do whatever they want to do with it. I think this is really, the left is just this, but this is their religion.
Well, here's the problem, Eric. And, we all sat on this table yesterday and said we all care about the climate. People are acting like climate issues are the same as this deal, and they're not. They're two totally separate things. And you're right. The Iran deal has some of those same problems. No one's saying we don't want diplomacy and the ability to reduce their likelihood of having a nuclear weapon, but that deal doesn't get us closer to that.
What about Nancy Pelosi? I think there was another soundbite. We didn't roll that soundbite, but where she said, well, if they breathe air, do they really breathe air, insinuating like the GOP and Trump aren't human?
Right, I totally breathe air, in case you was wondering. I've been doing it all day, every day, if you can believe that. Again, just like Eboni said.
You plan to do it tomorrow,
I'm doing it tomorrow. I woke up this morning, and it's crazy, because I thought the whole world was supposed to be in flames. I was shocked. I looked out the window. The birds were there. Everything seemed to be fine. I walked to work. People were smiling. Again, equating this specific deal with no enforcement mechanisms, which I'll get into a little bit later, to the entire climate is a logical fallacy of epic proportions.
All right, let's do this. Let's meet our today's specialist. But before we do that, take a look. We have special. Can you come in on this for a second?
We got new mugs.
Number 6. We have new mugs. We're going to be here to stay. Listen, specialists, we're the real deal now.
Legit, don't quit.
So he is the host of a weekly political radio show on 89 WLS Chicago. He's the co-author of 2 ebooks on the 2012 campaign, and he's the co-founder of RealClearPolitics.com, but he specializes in polling and elections. Tom Bevan is here. And he's a 5-time Super Bowl champion on PlayStation. He's the head writer for Kennedy on Fox Business, and his 1-hour special State of the Union is now streaming on Amazon Prime, but his specialty is being a Hall of Fame dad and a so-so husband, according to him. Jimmy Failla is here. Tom Bevan, let's start with you. Your thoughts on, you see both sides. I've known you for a very long time. I feel Real Clear is amazing. Tell me, where does the country stand right now? Are they in favor or are they against with what Donald Trump said and did?
Well, I don't think this is going to move the needle. Nothing so far has moved the needle. We've been in this sort of suspended animation since the campaign, right? Democrats hate Donald Trump. They hate this decision. They've already given him an 8% approval rating, so this is going to change any of that. Republicans, by and large, have stood with him on a variety of decisions. I think this is the decision that his base likes. It's a campaign promise, one of his main campaign promises. Independents, we'll have to see. He's lost some independents over time, and given the sort of the nature of the coverage of this, I wouldn't be surprised if he suffers a little bit more. But in my analysis, at the end of the day, this is all background noise to whether or not he can make the economy hum when it's time for re-election. And he has promised the American people that he's going to do everything he can, and he made that explicit yesterday in this announcement. This is about growth for him. That's what it's about.
Yeah, and Jimmy, another new high in the stock market today, the day of the Paris Accord pullout yesterday and the day after as well. Stock traders, they look to the future. They don't look to the past. Investors seem to be okay with this.
Well, according to the left, it's because everybody's investing in lumber so they can build an ark because the end of the world is here like tomorrow. I really found the whole thing to be very fear-mongery. And it was the same type of conflation they pulled with health care, where they said, you know, back to your point earlier, this climate agreement is not the same thing as caring about the environment. And they went out there and told us, oh, Trump wants us all to die, he wants us all to have bad water. That's not what was said. My takeaway yesterday, and what I thought the money line should have been, is that I'm open to renegotiating our way back into this deal. I am open to working with Democrats, but we're losing that in the narrative here because it takes away the political lane for the left and for the media to demonize him and score points. I really looked at it as like, wow, that was a really objective thing to say. It's a bad deal. He's not saying screw the environment. But then we wake up to headlines today, which is, you know, Trump to the planet drop dead.
Right. Everybody should have thought that this was a bad deal.
It was a bad deal.
You prefer a good economy? Should have thought it was a bad deal. But if you're somebody who thinks that climate change is this fast approaching, very severe problem, then you especially should have thought this was a bad deal because there's no enforcement mechanism. This is like the rent-a-cop of agreements, essentially. And if you really think that the whole world is going to be up in flames because of this threat before you even get the chance to have children, would you put a rent-a-cop in charge of that threat? You probably wouldn't. So I don't understand the alarmism other than that it's just a knee-jerk reaction.
I want to say something to Tom's point, really.
Can I just ask you one question on the left very quickly? So the left all day was out there saying...
Let me ask the left, I don't know.
Well,
I'm just listening.
You're in touch with the left, probably a little bit more so than I would be.
Absolutely, true story.
So all day today I'm hearing about, well, see what Donald Trump did. They're world leaders. We heard Macron in France push back. We heard Angela Merkel in Germany push back. Yep. Of course they're going to push back because we were picking up the brunt of the cost of this thing. So of course they're going to say, hey, why isn't Donald Trump still in this accord?
Well, and we know we can't take them seriously, Eric, because when they come out the day of and say it's not open for renegotiation, that indicates to me, actually, as an attorney, bad faith.
Yes.
And you're not operating in good faith.
Or bad deal.
Bad deal and bad faith. And to the political point that Tom brought up, you know, as an independent, somebody who didn't necessarily vote for the president, but look, he is my president, so I'm going to expect certain things to maybe come out of this presidency. And you know, one of the ones I'm looking forward to, and I've seen some of, Donald Trump's ability to renegotiate a better deal and better positioning for the United States of America. So on those days, very, very pleased with what I'm seeing from the president.
Yeah. Look, again, I'll reiterate, this comes down to it's going to be, the proof will be in the pudding for Donald Trump. And he had, I think, politically, this was not a good deal for him in terms of he knew he was going to face this blowback. And look, you mentioned climate change is the left's religion. So he knew he was going to face this. He nevertheless went out and did it anyway. So he's going to take the political heat for it. But he's doing it because he thinks it's the right thing to do for the American people and for the economy. Again, it comes back to the economy. And he's said, look, I need 3% growth. Paul Krugman today in the New York Times argued, hey, Obama produced 11.3 million jobs. Even while this accord was on, you know, we're fine. That is, Trump is rejecting this idea that 2% growth is the new normal, right? This secular stagnation. That's not part of his plan. His plan is to get the economy moving, and he's using every lever at his disposal to do it. And this is just one of the ones that was out there, and so he took advantage of it.
And Kat, a lot of people on the left, the reason for such pushback is because there are so many programs. If you believe that the planet is warming and we need to spend trillions of dollars to do it, well, how are you going to spend the trillions of dollars? You're going to send money into these pet projects that, frankly, are headed by a lot of leaders of the left. Al Gore.
Of course, absolutely. And the thing is people always talk about environmental protection in terms of environmental regulations. And I really reject the idea that the only thing we need to do is just regulate. If you believe climate models, then according to them, in order to keep the increase below 1.5 degrees Celsius, you'd have to completely stop emissions. All of humanity would by 2065. We can't do that. So especially not without innovation. So we need to focus on creating an environment, a market where people can innovate and create things that are green technology.
I mean, you said something yesterday, and it was concerning, and I understand what you're saying. We all want a cleaner planet. We all want cleaner air, cleaner water to drink.
Sure.
But again, and the focus is, if you're going to push for, let's say, electric cars, Elon Musk says he's pulling out of every White House administration, every board he's on. But he wants a cleaner, he wants an electric car because that's what he sells. He sells electric cars.
Serves his business interests.
But let's say we do go further away from fossil fuels and into other forms.
Yeah.
Well, this electric car has to be charged. It has to be powered up. Yeah. It's powered up by a fossil fuel plant that generates the electricity to put in it.
I think people's response would be, well, that's currently yes, and they're trying to look for other ways to have that electricity. But I have a question for you, Eric.
Well, okay, so pro-nuclear?
I mean, I'm not
the left
saying that, but they'll never say that. Yeah, they'll never say that, but I think they're trying to have a conversation. They're not really clear, I guess is the short answer, about how they want to do it, but I think they want to be less reliant on fossil fuels. But this is my question to you. Ivanka and Jared Kushner, it's my understanding, supported the president staying in this deal. You are close to the Trump family. What do you think their influence was, and ultimately, why do you think President Trump decided against their advice on it?
Well, I think, that, again, we've talked about this a couple of days. I think this fit right into the Trump agenda. Every single talking point, Tom, that he had throughout the campaign was, we are going to push back from the global community. We want to be national. We want sovereignty within. We want America first. Well, NATO isn't that. NAFTA isn't that. And this Paris Accord isn't that. So he's done everything he promised to do. I will tell you, and I am close with the family, that fact that both Ivanka and Jared weren't there, they had something to do. But it struck me as odd that they weren't at that Rose Garden ceremony yesterday.
I mean, it's summed up in the one line that was the headline today. I was elected to represent Pittsburgh, not Paris.
Yeah. And by the way, that Pittsburgh mayor pushed back himself.
Thanks anyway.
Yeah, thanks anyway. All right, up next, President Trump scores some big wins this week that you probably had no idea about. And later, what do you get when you combine a circus with a train wreck? Kathy Griffin's press conference, that's what you get. Now she's claiming President Trump is bullying her. You have to see this to believe it. Don't go away.
In a week of news dominated by President Trump's decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, subpoenas issued in the Russian probe, and terror attacks across the globe, the Trump administration actually achieved some major accomplishments that are going mostly unnoticed. The Wall Street Journal's Kimberly Strassel lays out the highlights in her new column. They include President Trump's Interior Secretary signing an order to restart oil development in Alaska's Arctic, Senate Republicans beginning to draft their health care bill, and the Dakota Access Pipeline finally coming into service. All right, now, Tom, I'm a little surprised to not see more of the liberal media talking about the pipeline, not as an accomplishment, but as more in the narrative of Trump's going to destroy the world.
Right. Look, I agree with Kim's column. The one thing that she does mention in there, though, is that Trump's partly to blame for the reason these things aren't getting the sort of publicity that they deserve.
The Fifi.
Confifi, yeah, Confifi. That's part of the point, though. He could still tweet. He could still, do all the things that he normally does, bash the media, whatnot, fake news. But he could also tweet out some of these accomplishments and drive the conversation in a way that's beneficial to him and his administration, which he hasn't been doing.
Come on, you know he does that. He does that. No one gives a crap about it. They say he'll list them off one at a time. I remember one morning he put up 3 or 4 accomplishments, and the media, mainstream media, completely ignored the accomplishments. They just want to know what the hell Kafifi meant.
Yeah, Jimmy, how much of a role do you think Kafifi played in these accomplishments getting ignored?
Well, there was a role, and I think the amount of tweets aimed at Kafifi as a hashtag really is emblematic of the problem in that people really do give Trump too much control over their lives, too much emotion invested in him, because we all knew what it was. It was a typo. You know what I mean?
Right.
We live in a world governed by typos, But I feel like he really would benefit from a shock collar. When you're trying to train a dog and he's going to do something bad, so you zap him a little bit, because he does make too many unforced errors. He drives me crazy in a sense, because he has good stuff. He's like a pitcher who can throw 98 miles an hour, but doesn't always have his mechanics down when he gets out there to play every day. He's basically like the Tim Robbins character in Bull Durham, and I'm just throwing it out there because I know Tim Robbins would love to be compared to Trump. I know that would mean a lot to him.
Yeah, exactly. The health care bill, the Senate's starting to work on the health care bill. That's huge news. That's great news. I didn't really hear much about that at all.
But I'm going to put it back on the president, Eric, and I hear what you're saying, that he does sometimes put his own accomplishments out there, but what if that's all he did? And maybe not all, and so he did some of the fake news stuff, that's fine. But if because I just think he has such narrative control. I really do. That's a place I credit him greatly, is his ability to control the narrative.
So let's say he did that. What would you go to his Twitter account?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
follow him.
No.
Of
If
course I
all
do.
he did was talk about his accomplishments, or
I think
if all we did was talk about how great we were on Twitter,
Is that as
people wouldn't
entertaining?
come out.
No, you're right, Eric. But you know what? It would,
So look
maybe
what
he would
he's
be able
got.
to
I
do
mean,
it.
he's got these provocative tweets that drive people crazy. What the heck is Kovifi? What's what about these what's the quotes around wiretaps? So he does this, and what he ends up with. Over 100 million people following him on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and what other social media. So you got to keep that interesting to keep people
no,
looking.
I'm going to push back, Eric. Once you build a platform of 100 million people, which is no small feat, at some point, don't you get the privilege to control it in the way that you want?
Well, this is the way he wants. We're talking about it.
No, I think he wants us to be talking about the redrafting of the health care bill. I think he wants us talking about the pipeline being opened up. I think he does want us. Look, this is what I said. If he's going to get out there for 2018, Eric, and he's going to make the claims, these are all the ways America is greater again, we got to get that out there if he wants to be successful.
Do you know that the average American's credit score is now the highest it's ever been?
I know that personally.
No, okay, but here's my point.
Hashtag winning.
In 2018, you don't think that's 2018 is going to be all about economic accomplishments?
Of course. It is, and I think that he's going to probably benefit from that, and so are the rest of the Republicans on his coattail. But I'm just saying it would be a good time to start that narrative, in my opinion.
He didn't tweet when he was overseas. And he got good coverage.
Yeah, he did.
And he had a successful trip. He stayed disciplined on message. I understand that he's going to tweet. And I think it's actually not a bad thing that he tweets.
Do you know why he probably didn't tweet when he was overseas?
Because the time changed?
No, because of the security. Yeah. No, absolutely. Because if he's on Wi-Fi, you got to be on Wi-Fi to tweet. You're going to get hacked. You know you're going to be hacked if you're over there.
Yeah. Well, look, I think tweeting is a good thing, and I've never been one of these people who said, oh, it's unpresidential, he shouldn't do it. And I think Trump is, the more people tell him to do something, the less likely he is to do it. That's just his nature and his mentality. So I think he's going to stay on Twitter, for better or worse, through the rest of his presidency.
So just tell him to tweet then, as much as possible, and then he will stop tweeting.
You need him putting up some numbers.
Reverse shot caller when he doesn't tweet.
Yeah, get out there, DT.
No,
yeah, all he needs is spell check. We're a spell check away from a re-election right now.
Yeah.
But oh, if that's us, I'm out of here.
All right. Well, we have more, guys. Straight ahead, President Trump brings his travel ban to the Supreme Court. Will the justices let it be reinstated? That's the top of Eboni's docket. And if you didn't catch Kathy Griffin's press conference today, boy, did you miss something special. Now she's playing the victim in her Trump photo scandal. Don't go away.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialist. And now it's time for the docket. The time has finally come to find out what the Supreme Court of the United States thinks of President Trump's infamous travel ban. Last night, Trump's administration sought an emergency reinstatement of the travel ban that the president insists will keep Americans safer from international terror threats. Now, let's get a few uncontested points on the table. Number one, the Constitution empowers the president with incredible and broad authority on the issue of immigration, especially when it comes to protecting national security interest. Number two, earlier today, Vice President Pence said this.
The ability to come into the United States of America is a privilege, not a right. We're going to continue to drive this pause forward, advance what the president calls policies of extreme vetting, and we remain very confident that when this matter reaches the Supreme Court of the United States, they're going to recognize the right of the president in the Constitution and in the statutes of this country to control immigration in a way that puts the security of our country first.
And I fully agree, Mr. Vice President. It is indeed a privilege and not a right. And number three, lastly, President Obama successfully enacted a very similar travel restriction during his administration, and no one really seemed to mind. So what's the big deal now that President Trump essentially wants to do the same thing? Why are people freaking out and calling it a, quote, unconstitutional Muslim ban that discriminates on the basis of religion? Oh, probably because of President Trump's own words. Specifically, President Trump's campaign promised to enact a, quote, total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. Now, some people don't think that it should matter what the president said before he took office, and I can understand that. But the High Court has a tough determination. They have to decide whether Trump's revised travel order is a legitimate effort to protect the nation from terrorism or a thinly veiled scheme to screen out Muslims. And in order to figure that out, well, they are legally bound to consider what we call in the law the totality of the circumstances. Ultimately, I suspect that the SCOTUS will find in favor of President Trump, and this ban will be implemented per his clear and stated wide authority on this issue. But it will not happen without the necessary and healthy scrutiny that it is getting. Bolling.
Wow, I am so proud of you.
Oh, my God, really?
Well, your summary, you said, I think the SCOTUS Supreme Court will find in favor of the travel
I'm such
moratorium.
a good lawyer.
Let's call it what it is, a temporary moratorium. In order for it to get to the Supreme Court, it's got a couple hurdles. So if the Ninth Circuit finds it, it's that they're going to keep a stay on the ban, and the Fourth Circuit says something completely different, then it will get pushed up. There are other ways to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Once it hits the Supreme Court level, then they're bound by finding on the constitutionality of it, not what he said as a campaigner trying to get to the office.
So you're right and you're wrong. So it's this totality standard. So they can look at what he said, but ultimately, Eric, I think you're right in that they're going to decide that that doesn't what he said in the campaign trail is not as important. They're not going to weigh it with the same gravity as to what the revised travel looks like on its face, because it's so important, this issue of national security. Tom?
Well, look, if you think heads are exploding now, wait till the Supreme Court, if they make a decision on this and they decide in Trump's favor, will set off another round of, teeth gnashing and rending of garments, especially among folks on the left. I agree with you. I think, given the president's, and I'm not a legal expert, but just given all the stuff that I've read on this, that the temporary travel ban is constitutional, it's legal, but it just goes to show you, though, the way that the judiciary has been politicized, that they've had so many different findings against them on this issue that it's going to end up ultimately in the Supreme Court.
Can I wait? I'm sorry. I want to wait really quick on the temporary thing, because I was thinking about this earlier. This has been going on for a while. This was originally January 27th, supposed to be 90-day pause. It's now been 126 days since January 27th. It's supposed to be during that time so they could vet or review the vetting procedures and figure out what's going on. Have they been vetting them? Because now it's been 126 days, or was this never really intended to be 90 days? Or what's going on with that? Because we've heard a lot about the need to review, but we haven't heard about any reviewing.
No, the prior policy it remains in play until and unless.
Right, but what's stopping them from reviewing it in the meantime?
Well, I don't know if they're not reviewing it, but I do think they would say that they're doing kind of regular vetting right now, and they hope to increase and move to extreme vetting if this is indeed confirmed. But I wanted to ask
why not now? Again, you're not Trump, so I don't know.
Question, but
I'm wondering.
I wanted to ask you this, though, Kat. We talk about narratives a lot, and some of the narratives out of the White House, and even Eric has said there have been some communication challenges. Do you think this is a situation where those competing narratives, Trump saying one thing on the campaign trail, now the White House kind of understanding how this needs to look for it to pass muster with the Supreme Court, is this one of those places where those narratives are costing?
Absolutely, absolutely true. And I'm sure that when Trump, as a candidate, didn't really understand what a major implication that would have. But again, like you said, the totality, you have to weigh that statement, which I completely understand why a court would take a look at that statement, because he said he wanted a Muslim ban, and then there's something that sounds kind of like a Muslim ban. Again, wouldn't be a very good one if that was your intention. I completely agree with that. And now he's also working with Muslims to try to stop terrorism. There's people that think that this is something that's necessary for national security. There's people that think that this is a veiled way to keep Muslims out of the country. I don't think either of those things. I think that it's just more security theater myself personally. That's the issue I have with it.
At this point, if you've been following American airline stories, I don't think anybody in these countries wants to fly here because they're afraid their rabbit will get cremated or they'll get dragged off the plane and beat with a stroller.
And then they'll get $10 million.
Yeah, the rabbit.
Actually, it's a career move. They just want to fly here and make money and get back.
Economic,
But I feel bad for Trump because he's actively trying to fight a war on terror, and the left is fighting a war on hurt feelings. And that's so much of what goes on nowadays, is that their playbook has been so simplified to demonize everything he does as hateful. As we hate the poor, we hate women, we hate minorities, we hate everybody. And it's an intellectually lazy argument, but it works because it requires the people consuming it to do zero thinking and just feel like they're on the right side of a moral argument.
Maybe it also works because of some of the things the president has said, though.
Okay, but
do we realize that? And you pointed out in the docket, but these are the same countries that President Obama already highlighted. So if it was Islamophobic or racist to pick these areas, thereby let's put a stay on his ban moratorium. Why wouldn't it be racist or Islamophobic for Obama?
So if Obama had said it's going to be a Muslim ban, he would have had the same problem. So that it's constitutional on its face. I'm totally in agreement. I just think the narrative issue became a problem for Trump. Anyways, more importantly, it's time to wake up, America. Did you see Kathy Griffin's press conference today? Eric Bolling sure did, and he's breaking out the world's tiniest little violin for her when we come back.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialists. Our specialists today are Bevan and Jimmy Failla. Now let's continue the conversation. It's time to wake up, America. Let me start by saying we all make mistakes, and sometimes we make big mistakes, sometimes really, really big mistakes. But America is forgiving. In fact, aside from winning, America loves a comeback story, a second chance. But that second chance has to be earned, has to be sincere. Now watch this.
I'm not afraid of Donald Trump. He's a bully. I've dealt with older white guys trying to keep me down my whole life, my whole career. What's happening to me has never happened, ever, in the history of this great country, which is that a sitting president of the United States and his grown children and the First Lady are personally, I feel, personally, trying to ruin my life forever. This president, of all people, is going to come after me? He picked the wrong redhead. We all know what's going on here. They're using me as a shiny object so that nobody's talking about his FBI investigation. I'm not going to be collateral damage for this fool.
Kathy,
I think he's a fool. So I'm going to say I think the president is a fool. Cut the crap. This wouldn't be happening to a guy. This is a woman thing, all right? I'm just going to come out and say it. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with me, but I live it. I'm going to make fun of the president. And you know what? I'm going to make fun of him more now. More.
Kathy Griffin was given a second chance today, and she blew herself up. In fact, Kathy Griffin just gave the middle finger to anyone who was willing to give her that second chance. Instead, hold on. We have Ted Nugent, who's calling into this show right now. Ted was one of the guests on the show earlier, but he was also mentioned by Kathy Griffin today. Motor City Madman, Ted Nugent, are you on the line?
Eric, I am. God bless the specialists. Thank you, Eric and Eboni and Kat, for still revering the truth and common sense. Thank you.
All right. Talk to us a little bit about Kathy Griffin, Ted, and specifically her reference to you saying that you at one time had done something similar to President Obama.
Well, it's absolutely false. I mean, I respect the greatest law enforcement investigators in the world of the Secret Service. When they were forced to come investigate me, when I expressed fear of my government, my quote was that I was afraid if Obama was elected again, I would either be dead or in jail because of all the farmers and ranchers and citizens across this country who unload on me on a regular basis, where they're being persecuted by various bureaucrats. And I'm sure you're well aware of that, the EPA and the Endangered Species Act and the USDA, but that's a different subject. I express fear of my government. But Pelosi and Boxer and Feinstein sent the Secret Service to investigate me, and they concluded, absolutely conclusively, I did not threaten anybody's life yet. Kathy Griffin and the whole left talking points, including our own friend Juan Williams, just repeats the lie that I threatened the president's life. Never happened.
Well, Ted, what did you mean when you said Obama, he's a piece of bleep? I told him to suck on my machine gun. Hey, Hillary, you might want to ride one of these into the sunset, you worthless bleep. I mean, what did you mean by that, if it wasn't a threat?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because what Kathy Griffin is hysterical over, and I got to tell you, I know why, because she's out of her mind. President Trump and his family were reacting to her vile actions.
Right, Ted. I was asking what you meant, though, when you said,
My statements were in response to an outrageous attempt to ban certain types of firearms that would do nothing except help bad guys with more gun-free zones. I was on stage at a rock and roll concert when Obama was a senator, not the president, and I made an outrageous metaphor telling him that we will not accept his gun control laws, but I never threatened anyone.
So, go ahead,
I could see perhaps people being upset about that. Again, I've defended both of these as being free speech. Free speech, they're not threats. That comment's not a threat. What Kathy did was also not a threat, although disgusting.
Right, and so I agree. I don't think it was necessarily a threat, and as Ted said, he was cleared of it ultimately by law enforcement. But I think if we're talking about making vile and reprehensible comments to people that sit in the White House or even the U.S. Senate, I still think that people that have a problem with one would have a problem with the other.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, I'm with you on the free speech, and it's good to see that everyone is condemning Kathy Griffin's actions because it is nasty. This is a world of terrorism where beheading is a reality. And she euphemized that. She actually referenced that to the President of the United States. We're talking apples and grenades here. I did nothing to harm anyone. She came out with symbolism that was truly vile.
So if it's just the words, it's okay. I just want to be clear. If it's just the words, it's okay, Ted?
All right. Ted, I'm going to give you the last word on this, but can you just wrap this up. You have a message to Kathy Griffin.
Well, you know, yeah, good luck. I mean, get your ducks in a row and have fun and be irreverent. Sam Kinison and Richard Pryor and Lenny Bruce are my heroes. But this kind of conduct is absolutely reprehensible and unacceptable, particularly in this world where decapitations are a reality in the war on terror, and to do it in reference to the president is absolutely unacceptable, and it does not fall under the control of free speech.
Okay. All right, Ted, we're going to leave you. And by the way, Ted Nugent called in on the surprise on the fly during the show, a surprise to all of us. Ted Nugent, thank you very much.
Godspeed, truth.
All right.
Gun deaths are a reality, too.
Well, and also, he did say, let's ride into the battlefield and chop their heads off in November.
All right, but let me do this. Let's stay on Kathy Griffin for a minute here. Unapologetic, that press conference, whatever that was, unapologetic. She was playing the victim. She actually said that Melania Trump was part of the problem. Donald Trump is a problem. Melania Trump was a problem. Instead of the moronic idea of showing a picture of a severed head of the president in blood. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first takeaway from watching today's video was now I understand why she hasn't gotten more acting work. Ooh, like, she's really a bad actor. I mean, and I'm not watching regular films. I'm watching films you can't reference on TV. But it was terrible, but she went for every social justice buzzword to try to redeem what a straight white male, you know, everything she could have never happened.
No, she said, when asked about CNN firing her, she said, old white guys are trying to silence her.
Yeah, of course, and this would never happen to a guy. There's no world out there where a comic can chop off the president's head. That grotesquely,
He didn't
by the
actually
way.
chop off his head.
Well, you know what I mean, but that fake head. No, it was disgusting. I mean, I got to be honest, it was a very hard image to look at. Like, I feel like
you know who's hardest for? Barron Trump. When he saw it, and this was reported by Melania Trump, Barron saw it on television, ran to her and said, "Is Daddy okay?"
Right. Look, I think what Kathy Griffin has proved over the last couple of days is Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. Yes. It really affects people. She actually thought that she could get away with this and do it, and she would be cheered. And she has reason to believe that. She saw Stephen Colbert utter a homophobic slur on national television. Nothing happened to him. So, and then she thought she could come back and try and win sympathy by playing herself as the victim, which I think went over horribly. And
but she also apologized just yesterday.
Yeah, that's the second apology of the week.
But she didn't apologize.
No, that's my point. She's a hypocrite. She's a hypocrite because she apologized, and then today she's a victim.
I think they should have at least blurred out in the picture. It was tasteless. They should have blurred out her face.
That's right.
I thought that was.
All right, we'll leave it right there when we come right back. It's Cat on the Street. What may be more demanding than an Ivy League school these days? Preschool. Cat takes Manhattan to storm. Its answers next.
If you thought being a toddler meant being cute and making little finger paintings and playing make-believe, well, you were wrong. At least that's the idea that some people have. A new study says a more rigorous preschool education might benefit your little ones in a big way. I don't really understand how 3-year-olds could really be more academically challenged, so I went out and asked some people what they thought. Take a listen. So there's a new study out that says that preschool needs to be more rigorous. What do you think about that?
Preschool needs to be more rigorous? What does that mean?
It means like less fun, more flashcards. I feel like George Washington was a huge flashcard baby, and that's why our country is what it is today. So you're not disappointed in our preschoolers?
No. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard.
Education goes so fast, I guess you have to try and start them as young as you can.
Stop me when it sounds too hard. Geometry.
No, it's too hard.
That's what they're doing in some of these schools.
I'd be super impressed, but I don't think it's something that they should be demanded to know.
You can dream it, you can do it isn't true, kids.
They have their whole lives to study hard and prepare for life. It's preschool. It's not Navy SEAL training there, you know?
As soon as you're out of the womb, boom, flashcards in your baby face.
No, I think you're being a little sarcastic.
I think our kids are overscheduled. That's why our kids are having all that trouble and sugar and trying to keep up. No.
0% of them are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. 0% have won a Nobel Peace Prize. I went to several businesses today, 0 owned by preschoolers.
In Australia, they're all CEOs.
So what kinds of things do they learn in preschool in Australia?
How to manage their money.
So if I need advice on my 401k, I should talk to an Australian preschool kid. All these businesses around here, I've noticed none of them are owned or even operated by someone in preschool.
Kids are so free with their emotions and could like cry when they want, scream when they want. I think preschool's like
that. Is that a problem?
That's not a problem.
I'm very free with my emotions.
I mean, that's wonderful.
Some say that it is.
I'm jealous.
What did you want to be when you were in preschool, when you grew up?
I actually want to be a house painter like my dad.
I think I wanted to be like a fireman or something, you know.
I wanted to be a dog.
No, you did not. What dog?
Like a floppy ears dog.
Little floppy?
Is it possible that all of my problems in my life go back to not having a hard enough preschool?
What other thing I do love about the developmental age, from ages 1 to 5, the brain has the ability to learn so much. But there's also the elements of having kids be kids.
If, the next president, would you be interested in vetting how rigorous of a preschool they went to?
There might not be another presidency. So, the way we're going.
Yeah, with our preschoolers. Yeah, she wasn't a Trump fan, if you couldn't get that.
That's funny.
You're a dad.
Yes.
So do you let your kid play? And if so, does that make you awful?
No, I'm an old school dad. I want him out there doing kid stuff because they're going to hate school anyway. All this does is expedite the process. You know what I mean? And I should probably be in favor of more school for him because he's in my gene pool. And it's probably not going to end good. But I thought it was very brave of you to go out there to the Lipstick Hall of Fame and tape that segment. Was that where you were, like a lipstick factory?
There was some sort of lipstick event going on outside.
I actually couldn't hear you because the makeup was too loud. It was unbelievable. But yeah, I'm in favor of easing them into the academic process because kids now, my son is 80s in 3rd grade, he has adult stress. School is stressful now. It's a lot more involved for kids than it was for us. You remember what kindergarten was for us? This would have been aggressive to do in kindergarten. We had nap time in kindergarten.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, ridiculous.
Who wants to hang out with a 3-year-old who knows geometry anyways?
I do. All right, so let me ask you this. Do we think it's okay to show kids creative things like art and expose them to music at 3 years old?
I think, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's okay.
I think it's
but
all
not
okay,
the logic.
but why are we...
So the brain is divided
the word
into two
was
hemispheres,
more
right?
rigorous.
The left side of the brain develops the logical human being. The right side, it's the creative sense of human being, right?
Yeah.
So if we're okay with the creative side, why aren't we okay with the logical side?
I'm okay
as
with
well?
whatever. The word was more rigorous, and I feel like we don't really need stressed out preschoolers. I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
I got 5 kids. My oldest is a junior in high school. My youngest is just finishing kindergarten right now. So, you see the pressure that's put on these kids. And I don't think, and these kids nowadays, they're playing with, iPads and apps, and they're getting all sorts of logic-based learning, I think. So we don't want them to be too stressed out as we head, as we get in, as Jimmy just said. I mean, the stuff that these kids are doing now, they're coming home in 1st grade with homework. It's
I'm
a
actually
little bit nuts.
I don't know. I'm with Eric on this. I don't know. That's just maybe how I was raised. My mom was like very much like get in front of it because you don't want to get behind. And
yeah, that'll change when you get your first bad macaroni necklace. We need to get back to the basics.
Got it. Okay.
Got some bad necklaces.
All right. All right, don't go away. We circle back with our specialists, Tom, Bevan, and Jimmy Failla, right next.
Time to circle back with our specialists, Tom Bevan and Jimmy Failla. All right, gentlemen, let's start with this. Jimmy, you are a 5-time Super Bowl champion with PlayStation. Favorite play go?
Dominant. I like the tackle trap in PlayStation. Everybody who sits down to play football, specifically video football,
is pass happy, because that's where you'll accumulate the most yards. But most people don't know how to stack a defense against the run. So if you're really serious about winning, what's playoff football about? It's about controlling the time of possession and keeping the other team's offense off the field.
You're the real MVP, Jimmy.
I got homework for you. You got to go check out the old Kollege football game.
Oh,
that was great.
I've played it, yeah.
My question for Tom. Tom, they told me Brexit would never happen. They told me Donald Trump could never win. They told me my Cubs, hometown Cubbies, could never win a championship. Can they repeat?
Can the Cubs repeat?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they're sort of middle of the pack right now. They've had their ups and downs, but yeah, the Cubs can absolutely repeat. They've got some real power
assuming
there.
They don't
got
have
to put it together. Assuming
they don't have to play the Yankees. The
Gotta
Yankees
peak
are
at the
for
right
real
time.
right now. The Yankees are the team nobody wants to play.
Spoken like a New Yorker.
Tom, I was going to ask you, what did you think the chances were that you were going to be having a sort of conversation with Ted Nugent when you woke up this morning?
Pretty slim. Actually, none.
Yeah, zero, right?
I did not expect that at all. Yeah, that was an interesting surprise.
Life's full of surprises.
Full of surprises. I just want to call you out and compliment your very brilliant mix of patterns today.
Thank
I like
you.
the,
Yes. Eric called them aggressive.
It was aggressive.
In the best possible way.
I thought that was a
You
compliment.
did
but-
plaid, gingham, and more plaid.
Yes,
and I love
well,
it.
you know what? My wife tells me what to wear.
Thank you
so
to
put it
our
on.
Fox News specialists today, Tom Bevan and Jimmy Failla. And thank you all for watching. Make sure to follow us on social media at Specialist FNC, both Twitter and Facebook. And remember, 5 o'clock will never be the same. Special report up next.
President Trump vowing victory takes the legal battle over his executive order on immigration to the nation's highest court.